Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
I tell people this. I'm like, if you do real estate, someone said to me a long time ago, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you have to make money, lose money, and go to court.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. It's your boy, your host, Norman Tillman, and you are waiting for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory, walk.
Warning. This is a public service announcement. The Walk in Victory podcast is where we have conversations purposed to evolve lives. You may not want to evolve. Then tune into another bleeping podcast. Everyone else, enjoy the show. And here's our host.
Good afternoon, good day, good evening. I don't know what time you're listening or where you're listening from. I am sure glad that you're listening. It's your boy, your host, Norman Tillman, and you are with me for another episode of Walk in Victory. Speaking of victory walks, we're living now in a time where people are really thinking, people my age are thinking about the next level of their life. I lived half a century. I'll be 50 years old in September. And we start thinking about slowing down, retiring. And, they started saying like, oh, for me, 50 is a new 25, right? But in reality, it's not. We have more days behind us than we do in front of us. And in terms of what investments we've made over the course of our lives, starts to really come into play. We're watching the economy. We don't know what's going to go on with pensions for those who are working on jobs that say this don't have a pension. We have 401k plans and all of these things that we don't look over. And one of the greatest investments in my entrepreneurial time, if done, best thing that you can do for you is to own and not rent, because you start to put equity. And this is not even from a real estate investment prospect. This is just from ownership versus rental. A few years back, they removed the cap in New York City on rents. And rents now are going through the roof. But if you own the property, it doesn't matter what the landlords do. For the next X amount of years, this is how much you're going to pay. And it's easier to budget without worrying about my leases expiring and all of these other things. But when you take it to the next level and you start to look at real estate as an investment tool, you need fortune. Too many times, and I lived through the era of the zero down, and there's creative ways to do that stuff. I lived through that where the 0% interest loans and all of those things. And I lived through the bubble. And I lost my shirt in the bubble because people that we were connected to and how things were panning out. I was saying hold, and everybody was trying to flip. And it's just an interesting time. And now, from what the prognosticators are saying, we are in the seller's market. So you're going to have people selling, you're going to have people buying, right? And those who are buying are making a wise decision. Sometimes those who are selling, depending on why you're selling, and there's ways that you can even get around needing to sell. But those who are selling will probably look back and kick themselves in the tush if they are not buying as they're selling. Interesting story, and then I'll bring in our guest. I had one of my mentors was living in a gated community, really, really nice community, and his neighbors, they were well off, and they did real estate. He also trained dogs, And his neighbors was like, man, we're going to sell this house in this community and move into another community in New Jersey. That's way better than this community. Like the neighborhood is basketball players, baseball players. And he said, well, why would I trade off my equity, my house, and gain more? This is already, I'm in a nice community just to be around a new neighborhood. So the way that he viewed it, and he was able to show me real estate, even in this religious world. He's like, on Sunday, the church is the sanctuary, or Monday is a piece of real estate. How do you maximize Monday through Saturday in order to make that real estate profitable? And I'm talking real estate, because we sit here at the feet of the masters. We have conversations that evolve you into a better you and tap into things. So, Frank, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing good, Naran. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for us. If you don't mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself. And I took 5 minutes up, so you got 5 minutes. You can talk about what makes your podcasting, why you're passionate about podcasting, and anything else you want to talk about.
Sure. Yeah. No, first of all, Frank Iglesias here, real estate investor, 16 years now. Yeah, we've done hundreds of deals ranging from rentals, wholesaling, lots of fix and flip. We've done lots of new construction. We've played with short-term rentals, long-term rentals, and I also do coaching. So we've played in a lot of spaces. But I want to back up to something you said right at the beginning. First of all, happy very early birthday. And I was sitting there thinking, he's turning 50. So I'm just a step ahead of you on that. And literally this weekend, I saw an article from a lady who was 100. And somebody interviewed her and they said, what is your secret to being 100? And her answer was very simple. And it's something we could apply every single day. And it was, just be grateful. Just having, and we've heard the cliche phrase, but it's true, the attitude of gratitude. And I bring that up because in real estate is one of these fields where, people sell the dream, right? You can buy, you can make a lot of money through it. And all of that is true, right? And we've all seen the ads with the people with the cars and the jets and the whatever. But what you don't see on the sales side typically is the challenges. Like, it doesn't just happen. And if it does just happen, the odds of it sticking are very low. Every super successful person I've met has gone through a very dark time. Every one of them. But they all said they're glad they did it. They're glad they endured it. They stuck it out because it made them appreciate what they have today. So this idea of, oh my gosh, something bad is happening, our ability to reframe that is paramount. And that's something I wish I'd understood a lot better years back. Because real estate, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but the reality is there's a lot of people that get involved, and within a year or two, they're gone. It's just the nature of the game. But it can leave a bad taste in your mouth. And it's a very easy business to become ungrateful in, and you end up holding yourself back. Now, we're using real estate. We could apply it to other businesses, right? Or anything, really. But the idea is, I sit there and I say to myself, someone asked me once, do you have any regrets from the first 15 years of real estate? This was about a year ago. And I said, my only regret, I think, is that I didn't appreciate the downsides. To learn how to say, you know what, instead of fighting life and the negative, to just embrace it as, okay, it happened, but I still get to choose what this ultimately means. And too often as people, when we don't choose that attitude of gratitude, we actually empower others and their opinions and thoughts to become ours. And then we
Mm.
find our, and then we find ourselves in a position where we've compromised our identity. And I actually made this mistake, so I could speak to it very clearly. It's very clear to me. And I was like, wait a second. Just because a negative happened, right? And it's never a little thing. Like it's when you have that huge, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is horrible. The world's in the end moment, or at least we think in that moment as how it feels.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
We allow that to define us. And that is a huge mistake. But I think we all have to have that to learn the lesson. And so by choosing to be grateful for what happened, now people say, oh, I can't believe you lived through it. And you know what? I had a guest on my podcast, and I'll never forget, she lost $750,000 on one deal. And I was like, and I don't remember my exact words, but the long and short of it, she's like, and I'm glad it happened. Like you just don't hear that often, but it's such a shift, and it literally shifts everything.
Well,
And
what
so,
happens?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is when you learn, if you're going to stay in business, some people fold their tent and run away, right?
True.
But if you're going to stay in business, you realize that there's sharks at the table, and the sharks are
They're everywhere.
So you're at the table, everybody's smiling, everybody has on their best suit, everybody's shaking hands and saying, "Oh man, what a great deal!" And "Oh, you're gonna do great." And they're giving you words of wisdom, so you think, but they're not there to teach you. Losing the $250,000 may be the teacher. For me, they told us I was in construction, and the guy was like, "Oh man, you would be great to help my business." And he was forthcoming about that, because you're on the road, you see people that's in trouble. I help people out that's in trouble in real estate, and I'll pay you for helping me find deals. Called us watchdogs, right? And I was happy with it. And as I started to educate myself more and more in the real estate game, on the real estate end, me, I'm a business guy. I want to be a part of a deal. I don't want to just give you a deal and you give me $10,000 in New York City. No, man, I want to be a part of the moment. I want the bigger coins, and I want to also learn. Well, I did a deal in a Sterling place. It was a tax deal. The lady owed tax. Now, if you owe, I always use little numbers because some people just think small. You owe $5 in taxes, but you don't have $5, and they're about to take your property. But you just owe $5. $5 becomes a lot of money. You don't have it, and you can't find it, and now you're panicking. They're constantly calling you. They're giving you letters. People start to panic, and if you're a seasoned vet in the real estate game, that's an opportunity. So this guy could go and knock on her door and say, "Hey, I can fix the problem for you and help you keep your property. This is all you got to do," right? Or he's going to say, "Let me talk to the tax people, and I'll take over the lien. I'll give you a couple of $1,000. And everything will be okay." When do you become? When do you realize that this is? I have a skill set, and I can either use it to help the lady who's going to probably wind up in the same situation again, or I can give her something, use my tool bag, make a deal with the tax collector, use a forbearance agreement, use whatever it is, excuse me, that I can use and move forward. How do you balance between those two juxtaposing positions?
That is a great question. I love that. And it literally happens on a number of deals, right? We come across people and it's one of those things where we have to be careful because on the one side, our goal is to educate someone, and we're speaking specific to your scenario. It's just, we're trying to educate someone on their options, right? Because that's a sincere thing to do. But we also got to be careful because it's not our goal to decide how fast they can assimilate that. Meaning everyone is at different levels in their journey, their maturity. Like sometimes people will make decisions and we're like, why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. But we have to step back and go,
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I mean, they're in a point in their journey where one of two things happen. One, they either could not absorb the information in a way, or they simply don't want to, or two, we didn't communicate it maybe in the way they needed to hear it. Right? Because sometimes, well, not sometimes, anytime we talk with someone, we want to communicate it in a way that makes sense for them. Because it'll always make sense for us. We're hearing ourselves talk. But can we communicate in a way that makes sense to them? And so if we think we've communicated it effectively, that's really the best we can do. And then we got to take that feedback from the other party and determine, they may pick something that makes no sense to us, which could favor us, or it may work against us.
Yeah.
Right? Either is possible. I met a lady once who she had a house going into foreclosure. She did not have money to bring it current. So her solution, and we gave her a solution that would give her, I think it was going to be like 75 grand in equity, but she wanted 100. But then the deal didn't make sense at 100, but it would make sense at 75. She said, no, I want 100. So I'm going to go hire an attorney to fight this. Now, she doesn't have money to make the payments, but she can go hire an attorney. And you're just thinking, that's crazy. But the reality is, I said, ma'am, I will respect your, no problem. Here's my number. Feel free to follow up. People are going to do what they're going to do. And I balance that line by simply taking what they give me. I don't fight with them. I don't argue with them. I don't debate with them. I'm just here to give you options and you decide. Now, could I try to persuade? I could, if it's actually going to be beneficial to them, right? But sometimes, and this is where I know a lot of investors, and you'll see this on the media, right? They'll persuade someone to do something and be like, oh, they're ripping them off and blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, some people have done that, right?
Yes,
and that gives the whole industry a bad name. So, I come at it from a position of I'm going to educate and I'm just going to take the chips as they come. And if we could give them something that works for them, great. Because here's the thing, whether the deal gets done or not, let's say it does get done and then they're miserable and they regret it later. Then was it really a win, right? Going back to the idea of sharks, right?
Yeah, because I took a negotiation class in Harvard. Like they would segment off their Sigma stuff and did negotiation because I was horrible at negotiating. I was in construction, horrible at negotiating. Go figure.
There's a lot of negotiation in construction.
I know, but I was bad at it because I grew up poor, so I couldn't wrap my mind around the numbers. So I knew how much the job cost because I was good at square footage and this, but then I was scared to make the phone call because I'm like, who has that kind of money? Because that was my position. That was my whole in life. I grew up in a place where we had food stamps. You remember they had the books of food stamps? Well, I don't know. But so that was my whole, and I had to get past that. So I had to get past that through coaching. But I remember one of the lessons was price is not a competitive advantage because we think that lowering the price makes whatever we're doing more competitive. In your 16-year career, when did you start to realize that there's certain necessities? Sometimes I just have to charge more. Sometimes, like, I know that the other guy is charging you 100. Using your example, I know that they're coming in at 70. There's somebody else is coming in at 78 and everything, but this number is true, and this number is going to work because. And I'm asking you this because I've seen where somebody will outbid another person on price or come in lower, and then they wind up paying more or wind up getting less. I've seen, like, we call that the flim flam. You know, they come in and saying, "Oh," and then now out there, just me and you together, Frank, and I'm saying, "Oh man, I wanted to give you," and people get emotionally connected. I wanted to give you the 78. I wanted to give you the 100 that you asked for, but I can really only, and they wind up either getting less or the same number that you came in at your true number. So how do you? When did you realize that, hey, I'll walk away? I'm not going to continue to fight and navigate. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and the reason it's great is it doesn't get asked enough. So I appreciate you asking. And here's what I mean. The big lesson I learned, and this was sitting in rooms with very successful people. Like, as real estate investors, we go sit in rooms with people that have done business, and maybe they've even done really well. But I had the opportunity to sit in a business room with some really successful people. And there were 3 words that were shared that really changed the way I looked at everything. And it was one of my coaches, he said, protect the downside. Because we go into a deal, maybe we're doing a real estate deal, maybe we're working with a contractor, maybe we're buying a business, whatever it is we're doing, the deal, we're just going to call it the deal. We go into the deal, and of course, what happens? You said it yourself, the emotion kicks in, we get excited, our brain will start trying to convince itself of every reason why it works. Now, on the flip side, our brain can work against us, and we'll come up with every reason why not to do it. When in reality, we need to be somewhere in between. And so what I've learned is, and this is something, I just did a deal analysis course that I literally just built it last month. And what I taught the people that went through it with me, I said, you know, we want to be excited about every deal when we first look at it, but we want to protect the downside. And there's 2 sides of the table in every deal. There's the sales side and the risk side. If you're selling, right, you're on the sales side. You're going to talk about everything that's great. But if I'm the buyer, I'm on the risk side of the table. And I want to minimize risk. And too often, again, going back to your shark example at the beginning of this chat, we go in there thinking, hey, that person, they got the suit, the whatever, their smiles. Oh, they're such great people that they've made sure I'm not going into a risky deal. No. That's not what the sales side of the table is thinking. That's your job on the risk side of the table. And so what we do is I look at our calculators and I tell people you can figure out if a deal is worth your time generally in 60 seconds or less. Because I'll take out a calculator and I'll be like, all right, here's what is the sale price of this asset? We'll use a flip as an example. But maybe if you're going to hold it, it would be what's the cash flow, right? Whatever the metric is. what's the sales price in this example in a worst case scenario? Okay, now let's put a reasonable renovation. Does this deal work? And let's take it one step further. I actually just did a video on this morning. Does the potential profit in a worst case scenario make sense when you add the one thing we can't get back to it, time? So if a deal's going to make X number of dollars, but it's going to take X amount of time, is it worth it? Can I do something better with my time that'll be more profitable than this deal? So it's not, again, you're right. It's not just the numbers. The time is because, we can make more money. We can't get the time back. So in our calculator, we literally have something that says, here's the net profit. How many months is it going to take? I looked at that number and it's in bold print. Here's how much I would make per month if it works out in the worst case for how many months. Does this make sense? Yes or no?
Yes or no? So for me, when we were learning the business, right, I had these numbers, 100% appraisal. So we got the appraisal number. They would say start at 70% minus repairs. Does those numbers still work today? Because you want to have a 30% spread. They don't work.
No.
So that's yeah. See, now you can see how long I've been.
The 70%.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Minus repairs formula. Now, I'm going to qualify that. That is a sales formula.
Yes.
It's a great formula when you're on the sales side of the table. You're making it easy for your buyer. It's easy to quantify. It's easy to relate to so that people can make decisions. But when you go to the risk side of the table,
it doesn't make sense.
You find out all these things you didn't think about. And I'll give you one example.
Yes.
I'm in the Atlanta market. In downtown Atlanta, we have this thing that's really anywhere in the country, but it's more prevalent in urban areas, and it's called crime. Okay?
Big deal.
Now, it's not a shock. Nobody's surprised by this. There's more density, and when there's more density, there's more risk for crime. Okay? There's nothing revolutionary about it. However, in my budget, I did not account for this.
Yeah, you don't.
And then when it actually happened, so you're building a house. I'll give you an example. We're building a house, and lumber prices went up a few years ago. You may remember
yes, I
that.
remember that.
I literally had a drop of material at the end of the day. By the next morning, it was gone.
Bro,
They stole thousands of dollars of lumber literally in less than 12 hours.
I lived through that.
And so all of a sudden I'm like, well, this is a problem. So the long and short of it is, if I'm going to do in some markets, I will have something in my budget. I'll literally have a line item for theft, and I will put in there my deductible times the number of times something might happen. So if it's a low risk crime area, I'll put my deductible, I might say $2,500, $5,000, whatever it is. But let's say I'm doing a deal in a high crime area. First of all, I probably wouldn't do it, but let's say I did. I might put that deductible in there 2 or 3 times, right? Because I got to account for that in my budget, that's a problem. Oh, but wait, you don't want to call the insurance more than 3 times, you get into all that. So then that number might actually be the deductible times once or 2, but then I might pad it by 10, 20 grand for what's my most likely thing to be stolen.
Yeah.
Right. So we're using kind of a morbid example, but this is something that they don't talk about in the formula.
No, our listeners is you guys are getting a master class, and I'm going to give you an example. I grew up in the rough part of New York called for Rockaway, Queens, and I had a house down the street, but right across the street from us it was a Jewish neighborhood behind us. Right across the street from us was a high crime area, but it was a housing area. So most people thought that all of the crime was in the high rises, and it was the beach. But in order to get to the beach on that block, if you literally lived in that community, you would never go to the beach walking down that block. Well, some developer came and built a high rise condo facility, and they was selling them. They was pricing them. They were pricing them at $1 million, starting at $1 million. Beautiful. The countertop, small apartments, but they were beautiful. Hardwood floors. They did it right on the ocean. So I met the developer, and I said, "Did you do demographic? This is one of the worst blocks in the whole peninsula." They would literally turn up and shoot the lights out, so when people come in, there's one way in, one way out. And I'm like, yeah, this is a beautiful apartment, but how people going to get? You know, they had to wind up turning that into a Section 8 housing facility. Couldn't get enough sales.
It's quite a
Couldn't
shift.
get enough sales. Couldn't get enough sales. I remember seeing it online for sale, and they was trying to sell an entire complex for like a couple of 24 million or something like that, which would have been a great. Now you go from trying to get $1 million an apartment to selling for 24 million or 100 million, something like that. But it's just because they didn't take into consideration. I don't think they walked the block at night because it looks beautiful during the day. So,
Can learn a lot by a nighttime walk or a nighttime drive. Yes.
do you when you're coaching? This is how I want to ask this question. When did you realize that you had enough experience to become a coach, that you move now from investor, that you've gathered enough information, you see a hole in the market? I was taught, I went to Trump University, but not to get a master's degree. I knew I needed coaching. And Trump didn't teach any of those classes. When I learned my real estate with Peter Conti, who was one of the staff there that was brilliant teacher, showed us the ropes, showed us the game, really, really deep dive in value. But when did you realize that you could put your toe into the coaching arena for real estate investors?
Yeah. So for me, it's pretty easy to get into that space because I used to teach music on the side.
Okay.
So I did that. And then I was an IT professional and I did some years of consulting. And when you're consulting, you're basically a coach, right? Like they're looking at you to tell them what to do. So when I got into real estate, I did it for several years and then I started running a couple of meetings. So I ran a wholesale meeting for 7 years. I ran a network group meeting for 5 years. And those meetings were effectively group coaching sessions. So for me, the education piece is easy. What I had to learn about coaching wasn't can I or should I do it? It's to what degree do I want to do it? Because I do like doing the deals. I enjoy deal making, but I also enjoy educating. I love helping people not make the mistakes we've made. Because what I learned about coaching, and, people have different opinions on this. I'm of the opinion, you get people out there, and this is probably going to be a little controversial, but maybe not. They'll do 5, 10 deals, they're a coach. And I'm like, if you haven't done 100, I'm not really, if in single family, right? Or multifamily, if you haven't done,
well, everybody became
on, I don't want to do it.
We can agree here. We can agree here. COVID, everybody became a coach.
Yeah. And that's the thing is,
They do one deal
I,
and they're coach.
well, when I ran into some challenges, what I was doing is I was applying smaller thinking to bigger projects. Going back to the 70% ARV thing, going back to the COVID, everything became a coach. Like it all kind of weaves together in a way. But for example, it's like, how can I say this best? When you're doing big projects, it's a totally different way of thinking. 70% ARV, if you're just doing carpet and paint, you can get away with it. You're doing a full gut rehab, this may not work out so well. Doing new construction, this is almost certainly not going to work out well. And I learned I had to think differently. I had to take a different approach. We had to go more percentage based, and I learned some systems from some business people. They weren't real estate people. They were just business, true business experts that dealt with billions of dollars of business. I learned principles from them, and then I turned around and I applied that to real estate. And I realized, man, we had this all wrong. There's nothing technically wrong with 70% minus ARV if you apply it in a specific case. The problem is we want to oversimplify everything, and then we apply it to everything because, well, it should work for every deal. That is so not true.
And to me, it was so not true. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I'm working on an AI agent that's going to help small business owners in marketing and stuff like that. What I surmised is that there's really only 5 movements in business, but each of those movements get more complex depending on how big the job is, right? So in your case, I'm going to use construction in my case, right? So if I'm doing home improvement, my needs to give a bid is going to be so.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games, all for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Much smaller than someone who's bidding for a government contract. We're doing a bid. We're both using the same word. Hey, I have to put a bid together, right? But one bid is, all right, if you want a high-end kitchen or a low-end kitchen. All right, if you want a high-end kitchen, this is how much the kitchen's going to cost. You want a low-end kitchen, you buying the material yourself. Another bid is, hey, we have to consider where we're going to buy enough paint to cover 100,000 square feet of wall without outbidding ourselves and making sure that, so it becomes more intricate, but it's still a bid. And those movements become more, you have more legs to it. As you started to see the different dynamics of legs from new construction to a total rehab to, oh man, this is the beauty. I can just use this 70 minus ARV paint and carpeting. How did you segment those movements? Can you do it? Because for me, for the things that I'm good at, I can walk in the room, I can do it here. Or are you the type that have to sit down all the time and do it?
So it's an interesting question, because we actually did this a month ago when I was building this course. We have a calculator for flips, but it's a little bit different for new construction, because I've learned these are two animals. Yes, there's a lot of similarities, but they're not the same. And so I learned we got to do that differently. And then we're actually now taking those and we're evolving them into rentals. And we did some rental analysis. It's like, well, there's the sub 2 rental versus the buy it cash rental versus the owner finance rental versus the, what's the other, the lease option rental. Oh, and then if there's short-term rental, well, that's, that kind of sits on top of all of those, right? Because that's really a subset of the rental category. And you realize simplifying all this is not always so simple, because each of these things flows a little bit differently. Each of these flows a little bit differently. And then again, like I said, on my calculator at the bottom, I don't care how you do any of these deals, whether it's short-term rental to new construction, there's that time component. That time component crosses them all, because there's nothing worse. Well, there is something worse, but generally speaking, it's not a good feeling to do a deal, it be profitable, and you still don't feel good about it. That's not a good feeling.
That's what I brought up the whole negotiating thing for, because one of the lessons I learned, and it's really based on morals. And then I said, yeah, you may walk away taking advantage. You might be the shark at the table. You take advantage of the people at the table, and they pass the check and they move on. But how do they feel about the deal? And every time the deal comes up, they get this negative feeling about you because you took extreme advantage of a situation. Now, I know people that can sleep at night like that, but when it comes to the win-win, have you ever been in a deal where you, like, the person just is a total novice and you could have taken super advantage of them, and you just said, hey, you know what, there's more money on the table for you. I'm not going to give you a lion's share more, but I will make you feel a little bit better because I'm not going to be a dick.
Yeah, we've experienced that. I mean, it doesn't come up too often, because usually when that's happening, you're dealing with a real extreme home run type deal.
Yeah.
Those tend to be unicorn deals, so to speak. So we don't come across it often, but sure, we'll do that. We'll say, hey, we'll do X, to make it a little bit more balanced, a little bit more fair. Usually it takes care of itself in the negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, it can happen both ways, right? Like, I had someone reach out to me about a deal. This was a few months ago, and they wanted help with the remodel. And it was basically like $100,000 renovation. So it was a sizable project. The house needed a lot of work. And I was like, they wanted to partner. And I was like, okay, well, what does that look like to you? Well, when they explained what it looked like, their idea of a partner was, I come in there, I do the work, and they basically get 90% of the profit. And I was like, no, at that point, just go hire a GC, right? You don't need me, just go hire a GC. So I was like, I can offer you this cash and then you're done, right? And then we'll, hard money or whatever. Or we could partner, and then you could learn doing it with us, because she wanted to learn. And then I said, but if we're going to do it that way, there needs to be a reasonable split, right? Reasonable. And I didn't really define it super clearly. I was kind of like, we could do 50-50, but we don't have to. We could do something you're comfortable with. I wanted it to be open. But it's interesting, when people get a number in their head of what they want, they get fixated on it. And when they get fixated, what happens? The emotion kicks in, logic, and we all know emotion goes up, logic goes down. And she literally just disappeared, which is fine. I was like, that's okay. I was like, you called me. I mean, so if you disappeared, all right, well, that's fine. But it's interesting to me how many people, because yes, you could say, well, that investor is being the shark. And there are investors that sadly do that. But on the flip side, there's no shortage of sellers that play the exact same game in reverse. And now they're mapping out what they think you as the investor are going to make. Except when you hear them talk, you're like, they've clearly never done this before and don't really know the risks. And I don't say that I don't say that to be negative. I'm just saying the game is played in both directions constantly. I would actually argue there's a lot more sellers that will try to play that game.
Than there are, not seasoned investors come in. They already understand where their price points are, and they're going to come in because again, time is money, right? So they're like, hey man, this is what I have. I done ran the numbers. I done searched the blocks. They know the hotbed areas. They know it. So they're coming in with a game plan already.
Exactly.
Usually the buyer's trying to get more. So that's a great point. Two more questions for you. Then I thank you for each more, but I'll let you go. Question number one. I was a musician, vocalist, and I learned systems in theology system. And then I realized that systems, theology, music, systems in everything kind of are essential. From your music background, being an accomplished or trained musician, how easy was it for you going through that complexity of musicianship, breaking it down into systems, being able to view the world through those lenses?
Yeah, I started playing when I was a teenager. And effectively, when you learn music, you're learning a system. Okay. Whether you do it in a trained fashion or you do it audibly, nowadays, like my son learned piano, I was amazed what they were doing. It's like they have the whole visual thing and he's pressing keys based on what he's visually seeing. Turns out he's incredibly naturally talented at it, but how he learned it was so different than how I learned it. It was incredibly fascinating, but it was still a system. It was a visual YouTube driven system, but it's still a system. And it made sense watching it. I'm like, it was almost like Guitar Hero on steroids or those dance pads we play, going back a few years. Those were fun though. But anyway, it was a system. When I went into IT, everything in IT is a system. Like that's the entire industry is a system. It's computers, right? So when I got to real estate, my mistake was I got burned out on IT. I did it for 15 years, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I literally got bored. So when I left, I kind of turned that part of my brain off, which was a mistake. And my early coaches didn't connect the dots for me, and I'm not trying to diss them. It's just no one ever connected the dots until several years later. Frank, your past is systems. Why are you not leveraging systems more effectively in business? And so, but we need coaches. We also got to make sure we're getting the right coaches. Because I tell people, what you don't know can hurt you in some cases, but in real estate, what you don't know can and will hurt you.
Real estate is a beast, man. Real estate is a beast.
It is a beast. It is a beast.
It's a beast. I've seen people who was up, and not talking to their family up, moved to the hills up. They had to come back and hit the soup line.
This is a business that can humble you. I mean, it certainly humbled me, and in my case, it humbled me almost by accident. Like we thought we were doing okay. We didn't feel like we were on a course, but I tell people this, I'm like, if you do real estate, someone said to me a long time ago, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you have to make money, lose money, and go to court. And so you've done all three, you've not been in real estate. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then one guy come along and said, well, you got to lose at least $100,000. I'm like, got it. We're done. We've qualified. So then I said, but here's the thing. You got to know that the person you're learning from has also been in those same shoes. Because if they haven't done those 3 tiers, how are they going to help you when you're in that situation?
There.
So you gotta get a coach, but get the right coach. Get someone who's, they've been through the mountaintop, but they've been through the valley. When an investor loses money on a deal, I always hope it happened early. That way they get it out of their system.
Yeah.
I didn't lose money for 9 years. I was in this business 9 years before it happened. I tell people, I'm like, I think that was the worst thing that could have happened. Because then when it did happen, it was a shock. If you get it over with early, you can springboard so much faster.
Yeah.
You can appreciate so much faster.
I lost a whole lot of money early in my career. And man, I remember that feeling when you wake up and you look in the bank and all the money's gone. And you're like, what the?
Yeah, you're like, what happened? How did we get here?
And then I had to make a decision: am I going to stay in business or go get a job? And like I'm literally tearing up because I'm remembering that feeling. Also, the work site from Harlem, having to take the route where we was trying to circumvent tolls because we didn't have money for a toll. Then we went home hungry. He had a $100,000 a week payroll.
Wow,
that's crazy. Those are crazy times, man. But it gives me the experience to have these conversations. Everybody, I told you, we sit you at the feet of the masters, and we have conversations that help you evolve into becoming a better you. These conversations are priceless. We don't ask for cash apps or Venmos or any of those things, but what we do ask for is that you like and subscribe. Your likes and your subscriptions help us to get into the algorithm, so other people who are traveling in this journey and hear these conversations. Not only that, Frank is here sharing his experiences because he wants to help people in the real estate game. His information is in the description. Go on the website, get the clarity call. Don't make a deal because Ray, your cousin, or somebody said this is a good deal. You need a coach that's been there, that's lost money, that's made money, and that's been to court. and Frank has
criteria.
to know
Gotta
how
do
the
all three.
experience. You got to do all three, and he has the experience. And you need a coach that has over 100 deals under their belt. So I implore you right now: don't walk with your head down. Don't walk trying to figure it out by yourself. But together we walk in victory. Frank is now part of the Walk in Victory family, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.